Brad Underwood was in his bag at Illinois Media Day. We have, I think, 5 different videos on the channel this morning covering various things that Brad and other members of Illinois basketball said at Media Day. So go check them out. However, Brandon Lee, Illinois freshman, guy that is getting a lot of praise for his defense right now. He's talking his own defense up, saying that he wants to go in and get a stop every single time he's on the floor. Brad said he's been disruptive and just a really fun player to coach. Brandon Lee, by the way, 4-star recruit, higher rated recruit than Keaton Wagler, who's getting all this praise being compared to Io and Kasparis. Brandon Lee was actually the more prestigious commitment in this class. Now, it sounds like that's flipped a little bit based on what they've seen behind the scenes. But anyways, I digress. Brad Underwood had a comp for his other freshman, Brandon Lee, as well. Quote, Brandon Lee has reminded me of Andres Feliz the last few days. Now, if you're not an Illinois fan and somehow you're watching this video, you might not know who Andres Feliz is. I do because I am a Big Ten basketball fanatic, and I know basically every role player that's ever existed. Feliz played 2 years at Illinois. His best year, he averaged 11 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists in 2020. That was a good basketball team as Brad Underwood was turning the corner and righting the ship. But Brandon Lee reminds me of Andres Feliz. You buying that comp, and do you care?
So, quick little Google search on Andre Feliz. Want to shout him out, Real Madrid basketball player. That's sick. If I'm Brandon Lee, I want to be compared to somebody in the NBA. And I think that's what I'm gonna let Brad Underwood know moving forward. And I understand the Illinois connection there. But if I'm Brandon Lee, I gotta be compared to somebody in the NBA. Like you can call me Gary Payton Jr. for all I care. Just somebody in the league that like I can look up to. Um, I'll say this, like the clips that have come out of Brandon Lee like this summer, he does stuff that no one else on the Illinois roster does. And I think there was like his I think you and I were on the video for his like whatever, like his roster introductory thing where they do like the one question and then they show like a couple highlights. And he had a highlight where he dove on the ground for a basketball. And I I remember thinking to myself, and I know this is gonna sound so stupid, but he dove on the ground for that basketball. And I remember thinking to myself, Brad Underwood is not going to be able to keep him off the court because no one else on this Illinois roster is going to dive on the ground for a basketball. No, not few people on the roster besides Kyle and Boswell are going to get in a stance on defense. Petrovic will too, of course, but in a different capacity, like in a different way. So I feel like the comparison to me, because Andre Feliz is somebody that like Brad Underwood played a lot in his both his years at Illinois. I think the comparison is, hey, there is a role for you that gets you on the court where you don't have to be Terrence Shannon Jr. You're not going to be the Andrei Stojakovic of the team. You're not going to be the Petrovic of the team. You're not going to be Big T, but you can be something that gets you on the court. And Andre Feliz was that, where it's just like you played a role and you got to play basketball. But if you don't buy into that capacity, you probably won't play too much.
Yeah, I can see that. Now, I'm buying that Brandon Lee's going to have an opportunity, partially because there's a lot of adversity going on with the other members of this backcourt right now. We know Kylan's going to be everywhere, but Stojakovic is hurt. Ty Rodgers is out for the year, we think, and Petrovic is not cleared yet. So, God forbid, worst case scenario, doomsday happens. Lee and Wagler are going to play a ton. I will say situationally, I'm going to compare this. This is the second time this morning that I've compared Keaton Wagler to Jace Richardson. I did on a different video without you, but situationally, this little freshman guard duo reminds me of last year's Michigan State guard duo. Brandon Lee, Kurt Heng, Keaton Wagler, Jace Richardson. Dion, how's your job going?
Beginning of the school year, everything's like a little up and down. One of the biggest issues we've had is we can't find any uniforms for our girls' sports teams.
Hmm. That's a difficult thing to find a solution for. I know damn well all about that because I got a daughter that just turned 2. She's into sports and she's already outgrowing every little piece of sports apparel she had. Thankfully, I know Clara K Creations. Clara K Creations was started by a former high school teacher who quit because it wasn't cost effective to send new twins and a 2-year-old to daycare. She found it easier to make girls' sports apparel than finding it to buy. And I am so thankful that she exists because if we have an old shirt of Murph's that she's outgrown, we can send it in and she takes that piece of apparel that means something and upcycles it into an outfit that Murphy can now wear as she grows up. She makes great stuff. It's honestly kind of like your fullback's wife, Kyle Juszczyk. Is that how you say it? She does that, but honestly, I think Clara Kate's coming for Mrs. Juszczyk's job.
I love that. I'm a big Juice guy. Love his wife. Love Claire Kate even more than both of them, though.
You can send in your own custom ideas and she will come up with a design. She's just the best. Look up Clara Kate Creations on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and more. Kurtang was actually the higher rated recruit than Jace Richardson. Kurtang was the guy that had a lot of smoke that coming into the offseason, I think when they committed, it was like, oh, this guy could play in year one. And then the season showed up and Jace was like the best player on the team right away and Kurtang was buried on a team with a lot of guards. I see that happening with these two. I think Wagler may end up one of the top two players on this team. And I think Brandon Lee is going to be buried behind Petrovic and Stojakovic and Boswell and Wagler. And that doesn't mean anything for Brandon Lee's future. In fact, Kurtang might be really good this year. We had him atop our list of guys whose points per game are going to increase as a sophomore. So I like Brandon Lee as a culture guy, as a program guy. I love that there's one guy on this roster that they're all talking defense with. Kylan, too. We know he's a very disruptive defender. But, like, for this kid to come in before he plays a minute at Illinois, put a microphone in front of him, and all he talks is defense, defense. I want stops. That's how you get on the floor as a freshman, and that shows me you understand how to get on the floor in a Brad Underwood system. I really like that. I would say this. Do we have to do comparisons for everybody? Like, is that what we're doing? Because if so, I'd like to throw a few out. Andres Stojakovic, Kipper Nichols. Kipper Nichols going to be great this year. Andre 2.0. Jason Jackstis, Adonis De La Rosa. Averaged 2 points a game back in 2018 for Illinois. I think that there's a lot of De La Rosa in Jason Jackstis' game. We just don't need to do this. We don't need to like take every player that steps through the door and be like, he reminds me of this guy. If Brandon Lee becomes Andres Feliz, that's an enormous win. He might never become that guy. If I don't know if Wagler becomes Io again, who he's comping him to, that's obviously a best case scenario, and it's putting a lot of expectations on Wagler right now. Lastly, if I was Brandon Lee, I think I'm going into Brad Underwood's office and spitting on him after this quote. Because, like, respectfully, this would be like me with you and Carter at the same time being like, well, yeah, Dion reminds me a lot of Pat McAfee. And Carter reminds me a lot of Ben Shapiro. What? What are we doing? Like, one of these two is the greatest podcaster on earth. One of these two is like the biggest entertainer there is. You just compared one freshman to the most beloved Illinois player in your tenure, and then you're immediately like, oh yeah, the other one's Andre Feliz. Like, I'd be so mad.
That's what I'm saying. Like Brandon Lee has to ask to be compared to somebody in the league. Also, I just want to say the last thing I got in, I thought for sure you were going to compare Andrei Stojakovic to Peja because we've been saying all summer how lazy of a comparison that is.
Yeah, I mean, you could, right? And I look, I don't actually think these comps are all that lazy. I think the Keaton ones are crazy. They're crazy, but they're not lazy. I can at least see what he's going for. Like Feliz is a perfectly reasonable outcome for Brandon Lee. It's just, again, I'd be pissed. My other freshman gets comped to the greatest players we've seen, and I'm Andre Feliz. Great. Like